So you look at all that God has done in my life ever since I made that decision to give my heart to Jesus. It's been amazing. I mean, He's used me in ways that I can't even imagine. Not only did He impact me personally, He's impacted others through my story, and it's only because of Him. And so many of my family members are now in the church. And I have 2 brothers and a sister that go to the church, and many grandparents and extended family members, old friends that have given their heart to Jesus. He's used my obedience then and to bless now what it is He's doing in other people's lives. But it hasn't always been easy. I didn't get saved and everything overnight began to just turn into a pot of gold. There's a lot of heartache, a lot of tears shed of, will my mom get sober? Will my dad get sober? I remember being, just set up many times, waiting outside the church building for my dad to show up on Father's Day and never came. On Mother's Day, but my mom never came. My mom going back into rehab and relapsing again, going back into jail and getting out again, and in the same process. My dad going into prison and then getting out and then going right back to the lifestyle that he was living. I mean, so much of this hurt. My best friend and my cousin, Chet, we grew up together. I was an only child for most of my life, and we did so many things together as just normal kids. But as we got older, we did many bad decisions together. And once I made my decision to follow Jesus at 16, I began to kind of separate a little bit, because I knew where my life was headed, and I didn't want that, and so I had to separate from Him for a little bit. But a couple years down the road, God began to get a hold of his life, and I was able to disciple him and love him, had the chance to lead him to Jesus and baptize him in the church that I planted, along with Selena. But drugs was a constant temptation to him, and I'll never forget, we had a sit-down encounter with him and kind of pointed some things out. And a couple weeks after that, though, he ended up going to prison, and I met him there at the jailhouse before he went to prison, and I told him, "Hey, I'm here for you. I love you, cuz," yada yada yada. And I'll never forget a statement that he said. He said, "I'll get you when I get out, cuz," meaning, hey, I'll talk to you then. And so after the time that he was there in prison was over, I texted him that day and didn't get a response from him. And the next day I texted him, nothing again. And it was a Saturday night, and I was going to preach 3 services the very next morning. And I get the worst phone call that I've ever received. And it was his father crying and wailing on the other end, informing me that Chet, my cousin, my best friend, had died of a heroin overdose. And so that night, me, along with John, went to his house, the house where I grew up in, lived in for a couple of years, did a lot of the same things that he did there. And the difference was that he wasn't alive. He passed away. And they brought him out on a body bag. And it was in that moment where I saw God's grace upon my life, where I should have been. And I hate that addiction won out in his life, but that was the epitome of a decision from life and death. And the decision that I made was to never go back, and it forever changed my life, and it forever changed who I am today. So, my name is Dylan Robinson, and this is my story.